Hi, my name is Robert Wingfield. I am the Director of Behavioral Health at Boys Town, Washington, D.C. I am here today to provide a parenting talk on the topic of childhood obesity. I'm going to place special emphasis on prevention strategies, and I want these interventions to be simple. So I consider these interventions to be simple solutions for serious problems. So during today's talk, I'm going to discuss the obesity epidemic that predates the pandemic, but also discuss reasons why the pandemic likely exacerbated the trends in the obesity epidemic, especially for children who have parents who gained weight. I will discuss the traffic light system. This is a simple solution with the potential to help many families, and it's a family-based program. So I'm really happy to share this information today. And I'm going to provide 7 steps for parents to implement the system. So let's talk about the problem so we can really understand the rationale behind the strategies that I'll talk about later. So even before the pandemic, 1 in 3 children in America met the criteria for the category overweight. And 1 in 5 children in the US met the category for obesity. Recent survey data collected revealed that 61% of Americans reported gaining significant weight during the pandemic. Some of the possible reasons this occurred could relate to stress. Most of us have heard of the term emotional eating. Another way to say it is stress eating. Some people eat compulsively when they're stressed as a way to escape or distract from those stress levels. Another rationale or another possibility for why there was an increase in weight gain in the US for Americans during the pandemic, maybe the affordability of foods became a barrier. We know that a lot of people lost their jobs or they lost some of their wages, income was reduced, and there's data out there that talks about the expense of eating healthy. And I'll talk about that data or that research later in the presentation. Obviously, there was less movement because schools shut down, jobs shut down, people were teleworking, kids were doing virtual learning, and there was no more physical education, there was no more recess, and general movement was put to a halt during the quarantine and the shutdowns at large. And when we move less, we burn fewer calories. So this combination of increased eating and decreased exercise is a double-edged sword. Now, the reason we are addressing childhood obesity as a topic is because there are medical complications associated with it. As we see here, type 2 diabetes risk rises significantly. And we see other things on the list, such as hypertension, and children who are overweight in childhood or meet the criteria, they are significantly more likely to become adults who are overweight. And another reason we need to address this topic is because of the psychosocial complications associated with being overweight. There's research that talks about the social stigma associated with being overweight for some individuals. This could be associated with peer teasing and bullying activities that occur at school, and kids who are overweight may be more likely to be targets. There's an increased probability of body dissatisfaction for an individual who is overweight, a child who is overweight. And children are less than optimally healthy in terms of self-esteem. Self-esteem may take a hit as a child enters into the overweight status. So these are all reasons why this topic is important and why solutions are needed. And there are other rationales out there, but these are a quick summary of several. So what is the solution? I'm glad we're all asking that question because I want to get to those slides. A possible solution, like I indicated at the beginning, is a system called the traffic light system. So this system is family-based. This is why I am a big fan of it. Everyone in the family gets involved, so a single person is not singled out. One child isn't singled out while everyone else is free to do whatever they want. It's a teamwork concept. It's important to identify one of the original founders. His name is Dr. Leonard Epstein. He is credited for the most part as being the person who really got this traffic light concept researched and then published and disseminated. And his program is called the Stoplight Diet for Children. And you'll see other versions that have a spin-off from the Stoplight Diet. And I'm reviewing the concepts, and I'm reviewing the key ingredients of the Stoplight Diet, along with other systems that are very similar or borrow from the original work of Dr. Epstein. So it's important to explain that this is a scientifically proven program primarily for ages 6 to 12. However, in studies, parents benefited when they participated with their child, and teenaged siblings of the 6 or 12-year-old or 8-year-old also benefited from the program. So the focus is 6 to 12-year-olds, but any age can benefit from the system. The traffic light system views unhealthy eating from a circumstantial perspective, and this is really important because the circumstantial perspective removes the blame and the finger pointing. The circumstantial perspective considers the environmental forces that play a role in the manifestation of an issue, like unhealthy eating is an issue, and the circumstantial perspective considers the role of the environment, which we'll talk about later. This traffic light system relies on the 3-stage theory. And as we see here, there's a cognitive component where the child acquires adequate knowledge of nutrition across various foods, and they learn about the impact on the body. So there is a knowledge building process. And then the second component is considered the associative stage. The child improves decision-making through practice and feedback from an adult. Practice, 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 feedback, 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 and improvements will be realized. And the third and final stage of this theory is autonomous. The child gradually develops the ability to select healthy foods automatically and independently. And that's where we ultimately want kids to land at a skill set, at an ability level to make healthy eating choices, even when mom is not around, even when dad is not around. And this system is really, really effective at doing this. Another characteristic of the traffic light system is that it views healthy eating as more than just a diet. It teaches children nutrition and exercise as a way of life. And I really like that the focus is not on the perfect weight. It's not on achieving the perfect weight. The focus is on well-balanced eating. This means that even a healthy weight child can benefit from the program, especially if this healthy weight child has poor nutrition. There are some kids who have poor nutrition. You wouldn't you wouldn't know based on body weight. You may not know based on body mass index, but they certainly are missing key nutrients in their diet, in their eating, and this program could work for that child as well. So let's talk about the premise a bit more. One of the main components is teaching the child how to make those wise eating choices. And it's a color coded system with three categories. The fact that it's only three categories obviously simplifies things, and it means that most kids can comprehend how to um, designate which category of food belongs in. An emphasis is placed on nutrition. It's not based on restriction. Um, and an emphasis is placed on exercise. So it's not just what we consume, it's how active are we. And there's an emphasis on the behavior modification. So anytime we're dealing with behavior change, we typically use tenets, principles from the uh, research in behavior modification. And there's an emphasis on teamwork. As I mentioned earlier, it is a family-based program. One of the great parts about the traffic light eating system, no food is forbidden. So that will be music to the ears of many kids and many families that we don't have to cross off foods for good forever. There are no rigid menus, and this is music to many people's ears as well, because we all have various taste buds and cravings. So we need flexibility, in my opinion, and this system allows for it. The system also allows the child to choose well-balanced meals. When kids are given choice, their buy-in with an intervention usually increases significantly. And this program is very, very, very focused on allowing the kid to have choice and input. So with any type of intervention, there's going to be some pros and cons. So I want to get those out the way so people understand some of the cons as well. So if under the pros, we see that the concepts are simple for many kids to remember because it's based on the traffic light. It's visually attractive, and in subsequent slides, you'll have an opportunity to judge for yourself whether the visuals related to the traffic light catch your attention and whether it keeps your attention. And the system has been proven to lower risk for obesity and diabetes in children. And like I mentioned earlier, the entire family gets involved. And that's really critical because if some members of the family are healthy weight and there's only one child who's overweight, it would feel really cruel and perhaps punishing if this child was the only one making adjustments to their eating behaviors. Like I mentioned, every intervention on the planet probably has some downsides. The downsides I've identified for the traffic light system, some foods don't fit perfectly into available categories. So for super meticulous people, this might be frustrating, but relax and give it a try anyway. Another con is people may unintentionally promote food judgment, or the program may unintentionally promote food judgment. Of course, the developers, the researchers behind this, and the practitioners who use this approach, by no means want to condemn certain items of foods. The whole purpose, the whole premise is really to reduce risk factors for those psychological complications or psychosocial complications and those medical complications. So it's really a pursuit of better wellness and improved health. And so that may need to be reiterated to individuals who are sensitive or take things personally. Another con is potential con. Unhealthy food choices tend to be cheaper. There's research out of Harvard that suggests that on average, If a person is eating healthier, if a person is purchasing healthier foods, at the end of a year, they'll likely spend about $2,000 more than if they would have purchased the unhealthy alternative. So the average family size is about four. That means the numbers double. Um, the numbers would double. So if my math is correct here, I might have misspoke. Forgive me. It's actually $500 more a year for a single person, and for a family of four, that would equate to about $2,000 more. And that might, prevent a person who might be motivated from actually, executing everything in the traffic light system if they can't afford the healthier foods. Thankfully, I do have a slide that identifies a nice number of inexpensive, healthy foods. So I'm really grateful that there are websites that could help us find, inexpensive, healthy alternatives. So do not fret. Lastly, parents may need formal behavior management skills training with a professional prior to implementing the traffic light system if their kid enters if their kid has pre-existing non-compliance, oppositionality, or defiance issues. And by the way, at a clinic like Boys Town's Behavioral Health, we do provide parent behavior management training, and there are other clinics that can help families in need of this as well. All right, before I explain the traffic light system in detail, I want everyone to keep a few things in mind. Um, there are three food categories: the green food category, the yellow food category, and the red food category, just like the traffic lights that we see every day when we're driving. A food's actual color does not necessarily correspond to its traffic light color group. That could be a bit confusing to people when they're first getting into this system. Kids will need to practice through activities, workbooks, and just discussion how to remember that the color, the physical color of the food does not determine where the food is categorized. It's based on nutrition qualities. And you'll see what I mean as I progress. Now, the traffic light system doesn't always go into depth about preparation practices. Um, so what you'll have to keep in mind is supplementing some other types of knowledge or knowledge sources with the traffic light system if you don't see a lot of information regarding preparation practices of foods might be needed. And the example here, basically, we can't just say that chicken is unhealthy or chicken is healthy. We have to understand how it's prepared, and that's when there could be a bit of a additional process to the categorization. All right, so we're at the green foods now. So the green category, no surprise here, says go for it. It's the highest level of nutrition. These foods offer the highest level of nutrition. We think about vegetables and fruits whenever we think about the green category. These foods are low calorie. That's one necessary quality. That's one characteristic of the green foods. They are low calorie foods, low in fat, but they're high in vitamins, high in minerals, high in fiber, and we consider these to be the grow foods because these foods are grown, not manufactured or not packaged by machines. We can go outside and pull them from the earth. So these are grown, not manufactured foods. And again, they offer the highest level of nutrition. We, in the traffic light system, kids are encouraged to eat as many green foods as they want throughout the day. These are great foods for snacking, and we'll see some examples of green foods when we progress. And it says go for it as a way to encourage kids to eat as much of this food as they like. The yellow category has proceed with caution, meaning they're generally fine. However, eating too many of the yellow foods may be a problem. So there does have to be an additional monitoring once we get into the yellow group related to portion size and frequency. And let's look at more about the yellow foods. So yellow foods are very essential for a well-balanced diet. Many people consider the yellow category to be the mainstay of the traffic light system because we get so much bang for the buck, so to speak, when we eat a lot of these yellow foods. They might be a bit higher in calories than the green foods, but they offer great protein, for example. So yellow foods can offer a lot of good stuff um, inside of them. And as you can see, um, items that will increase fiber intake, vitamins and minerals are all likely to be in the yellow group. And most of the sources of protein, grains, milk, and dairy foods, as well as some fruits and vegetables, are in the yellow group. So the red category, as you can imagine, are foods that we have to stop and think. We have to stop and think because they are calorie dense. They are high in fat. They are high in sugar. And these foods do not offer um, enough of the nutrients to justify consumption. So eating these foods infrequently is important. We can think of these foods as special occasion foods. These foods are not necessary to achieve a balanced diet. So we definitely are saying stop and think, is it worth it to consume this item from the red category because it's not needed essentially. So we can think of foods like cake, candy, cookies, ice cream, and fried foods. I always think about the carnival when I think of the red category because they seem like carnival foods. There are some combination dishes that will land in the red category. A combination dish is made up of individual items, ingredients. Individually, these items could fall in the yellow category, maybe even the green category. But once you combine the ingredients to create a dish like lasagna, it the dish in its entirety likely would fall in the red category. Potato salad is another example. Preparation of it, of course, matters. And dishes like pot pies. All right, so just to recap, the red foods are the most calorie dense and include foods such as desserts and candy and whatnot. The yellow foods are the foods we want to proceed cautiously. And then the green foods are foods that we can snack on pretty much all day, and they're really high in nutrients and low in fat and low in calories. All right. So I'm hoping that there are viewers who are wondering or asking, I want to try this in my home. Where should I begin? So we're going to jump into the steps. So step one for getting this program or this system into your house is collect baseline data. I know data sounds really fancy and it might intimidate some people. It shouldn't, because the data being collected is very, very, very simple. So body weight is something that you can get from a physician's office or if you have your own scale. Body mass index is a little bit more of a process, but the CDC has a calculator for how to get body mass index, and it's measuring the child's height, it's measuring the child's weight, and it's entering the child's sex, male, female, and it's entering the child's date of birth, and all of a sudden you get a BMI. And I can give you an example of what a healthy BMI is considered to be versus overweight versus obese. Collecting BMI for kids is especially important because they are growing taller. Seems like each week or each month, and the body weight may provide a misleading metric. If kids are getting taller, they will be gaining weight. And if we don't know the body mass index, we may think the system isn't working when the kid is simply getting taller. So that's why BMI for kids is especially important. And BMI is not a diagnostic tool, it's more of a screening option, but it does have a purpose, and it can be helpful. So recording food intake is important. Um, so I will present a chart that goes into detail about how to record food intake at baseline. By the way, baseline just means, that might sound like a little bit of a jargon. Baseline just means before the interventions or strategies are implemented, we want to know how a child is currently operating. So you should protect or reserve about 5 days, maybe 7 days, where you don't start the system and you're just observing and you're collecting information on how the child eats or exercises before the traffic light system is put into place. When collecting data, it's important to be pleasant and patient. When the program is started and then you're doing what's called progress monitoring, so maybe at the 6 week mark or the 10-day mark, you want to collect information on weight. If there's no change or if the kid has gained weight, it's important to maintain a pleasant and patient tone and mindset throughout the entire system. If kids get the impression that adults are disappointed with the weight check or the BMI check or the food log check, which we'll talk about, then it will be discouraging. Being pleasant and patient means there's usually something that can be positively reinforced, such as honesty on the log, on the food log. If a kid is writing down their meals and they're doing it accurately, even if they haven't, you know, lost weight, and let's say it's a kid who meets the criteria for obesity, that kid would be eligible for a program that reduces calories, increase exercise to perhaps lose some weight. The adult would not focus on the lack of weight loss. They would focus on the accuracy that is seen in the logs. Okay, and I see I have an end meeting warning. I'm gonna go ahead and press continue. I've been in this situation before. I don't know if people viewing this can see the warning. It says that the meeting is gonna end in about 4 minutes, and I'm not sure if the recording is gonna cut off. If the recording cuts off, we'll consider this to be the first half of the talk. I will save it, I will issue it, and then I will record the second half and issue that one along with the first one. So do not fret. The other steps will come, and I'm gonna hit continue now. I'll either see you on the very next slide or I'll see you in part 2 of this recording. All right, I think we're good. I think we're good. So remember, the purpose is increasing awareness. It's really hard to change behavior when we don't have a true understanding of the baseline of the starting numbers for the child or just for a person. Remember that monitoring progress with weight check or BMI check can increase motivation, especially when there's an objective measure that confirms that improvements are indeed happening. And it's a great reinforcing moment to see that the hard work is paying off. And of course, the progress monitoring and the data collection is designed to increase the probability of behavior change. Step two is create a habit book. This habit book is one example of the cover. A habit book is just a tool used to record eating choices and physical activity. When kids are being informed about the traffic light eating system, it's important to introduce everything as a fun activity. We have to make it not look like a chore or homework. So if kids are allowed to decorate their journal where they're going to record their food intake, I recommend a three ring binder because you can actually print some nice forms off of the internet, hole punch them, and put them in the binder if you'd like. And it's important to record information in the habit book multiple times in a day. So you can imagine after a person has had breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner, and they're trying to record everything they ate later in that evening, they may have trouble recalling. And that's for every human being. Our memory recall will be less accurate the further out we are from the actual behavior that we are interested in collecting information on. So recording the information multiple times a day. And when I say information, I have an example here. So this is just a sample of a food journal. It's not the one I recommend, and there's a reason I'll explain. And also on the right, there's a weekly log. So let's look at the typical food journal. The typical food journal um, is similar to the ones that come out of the traffic light system research, in that there's a meal column where it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then snacks. There's a food column where the child or the parent can record the items consumed. And right when we get to the carbs and fat and calories, that's when I begin to hesitate with wanting to use forms like this. There are certainly people who are very ambitious and they want to record carbs, they want to record fat, they want to record calories. And then you have people who would like to record in a more simple fashion. Uh, we could easily adapt a form like this to be more user friendly by replacing the word carbs with whatever word we want it. Let's say we cross that off and it becomes the green category. We cross that off, it becomes the yellow category. We cross this off, it becomes the red category. Now all the person has to do is just check which category their item fell within. And the total red food count and the total green food count are the most important. And I'll tell you why in a minute. I'm not going to have time to go over exercise in detail today, so I'll likely have to do a part two that just includes exercise. The step three goal is very, very, very connected to step two. Because during goal setting, you have to review the baseline data, which we just talked about. So we want to review that baseline data during the goal setting phase and do something called contracting. Another word for it is behavioral contracting. So during the goal setting, you're going to decide on a long-term goal for eating and exercising. Long-term sometimes means 3 months, sometimes 6 months, and sometimes 12 months or further out. And a family or child must also decide on a short-term goal for eating and exercise. So a weekly target. Creating a behavior contract that each family member signs can just increase buy-in. It's a write-up that describes things like effort. I will give my best effort. I will record data honestly, and I will engage in problem solving instead of quitting if issues arise. And we will review the contract on this date. And the contract can also list rewards that are age appropriate and not too extravagant. If the family would like to use additional incentives to create motivation, buy-in, and excitement. I think it's really important to make the rewards very, very, very modest because ultimately the best reward is feeling healthier physically, mentally, and emotionally. And the kid will get that payoff as a part of the commitment to the program. So there's no need to go out and buy the kid a new pony or a PS5 because of this intervention, or I would not recommend that. Things that are more practical and affordable incentives. All right, so let's look at this. So we're going to continue talking about reviewing the baseline data. This is a sample of a child, let's call the child Kevin. And we're going to imagine that this represents a typical day for Kevin. So this is representing a typical day for Kevin. And we're in the baseline review phase. And let's say Kevin collected 10 of these. So he collected 10 days worth of information for eating. And the average form looks like this. We can see that breakfast, Kevin consumed a Pop-Tart, whole milk, pork bacon. And the estimated portion typically means serving size. So instead of one Pop-Tart, he had two. And I believe one Pop-Tart represents one serving size. But don't hold me to that. I haven't had a Pop-Tart in decades. And we see that Pop-Tart would fall in the red category. No surprise there because it's high in sugar. It's relatively high in calories with relatively low nutrients. Whole milk falls into the red category. He had a glass of that. Pork bacon, he had 4 strips of pork bacon. And we're going to say that the pork bacon is an item that is one serving size per piece. For lunch, we see the potatoes were consumed, potato chips, pizza, Mountain Dew. We also, Mountain Dew beverage, he actually had enough of it to qualify as 2 servings. And so far, he's really accumulating a lot of red foods. And then for dinner, we see the grilled chicken and the brown rice. He got away from red foods for a while during dinner, but then he had broccoli. He almost landed in the green for broccoli, but he contaminated it, or he disqualified broccoli from landing into the green category because of the extra cheese whiz. So that's an example of broccoli on its own being a green food and healthy, but something coming along, combining with it to make it unhealthy and falling into the red category. And we see that snacks were kept at the bottom, and he did have some popcorn, air popped popcorn, some French fries, and ice cream, for a total of 22 red foods consumed in that day, 4 yellow foods, and then 0 foods that fall into the green category. All right. So after we review the baseline data, we need to set red food goals and strategize. And a long-term goal for Kevin will reduce daily average of red foods from 22 to 3. It sounds very ambitious, but remember, it's a long-term goal. This means it could be after 6 months of of this system being in place. Short term, Kevin will reduce daily average of red foods from 22 to 20. So the short term goal usually means weekly. So by next week, Kevin will average two fewer red food items each day. And we are uh, more confident that he could reach that weekly goal. And the weekly goal obviously is going to um, need to be refined after some success. So after maybe a week or two or three of success at only eating 20 red foods, Kevin should be engaged, and the adults working with Kevin should ask him, is he ready for 18? Is he ready to go to 19? Is he ready to go to the 18 or say maybe even 17? A lot of times, I've noticed kids get super excited when they start to see progress, and they may say, I want to go to 10 foods, down from 22 to 10 red foods a day. I love the optimism. I love the ambition, but it's important to understand that it's really difficult to reduce red foods in a drastic swoop. And it's much better for the program to stagger the reduction, progressive, uh, decreasing it gradually. When kids choose a goal for the week that's too lofty and they don't meet it, that could feel really punishing and interfere with our objective to make this as reinforcing as possible. Another part of this phase is helping Kevin select red food replacements and then creating a red food replacement chart. So this chart includes a few things that you can see. The Pop Tart, strawberry flavored, can be replaced with oatmeal with fresh strawberries, and that would fall into the green. That would be a green food. The whole milk can be replaced with low fat milk, and that would become a yellow food. Pork bacon can be substituted for turkey bacon, and there may be some controversy around this depending on a variety of nutrition facts. But for the most part, we allow for turkey bacon to end up in the yellow category. I know sodium can be high in the turkey bacon. Trust me, I've checked. So hypertension risk might not shift as much as we hope or we'd like to believe. But still, we're gonna allow Kevin to put the turkey bacon in the yellow category. Another example is large potato chips can be replaced with banana chips if the snack craving is for something crunchy and it's less about something salty, it's just anything crunchy. And we do want kids to tell us, what are you craving the most? Something crunchy or something salty or something mushy or something sweet? Because if we understand what exactly they're craving, we can select better replacements, either by texture or by um, taste, sweet, sour, bitter, salty. And then the Mountain Dew, Kevin agreed to drink water with fresh lemon and lime. And then broccoli with extra cheese whiz, Kevin agreed to replace it with broccoli with low fat cheese. So his replacement chart can be placed on the refrigerator or anywhere in the home that's highly visible. Now the green food goal and strategies need to be looked at as well. It's not just about pursuing a reduction of red foods, it's also about promoting green foods. Some people stop short of this, and it's a problem. Green foods that Kevin decided that he liked included broccoli, carrots, green beans, sweet potato, and apples. So Kevin was interviewed by an adult, and this list, his responses were placed on that column, in that column. The green foods that he is willing to try include nectarines, peaches, tomato juice, cauliflower, cucumbers. So good for Kevin. He's being open-minded to taste these foods that he has never had before, or he hasn't had in a while, or he just finds intriguing and he wants to give it a shot. Even when a kid ultimately decides that they don't like something on their foods I'm willing to try list, it still should be positively reinforced that they at least tasted it and they gave it a try. And Kevin, remember at baseline he had zero green foods daily. So his long-term goal is to have at least six daily, and the short-term goal is to consume um, one a day for a week. And again, we're making that short-term goal very, very, very attainable so that he can experience that victory, that achievement, and then step up the subsequent week. Step four of implementing this traffic light concept or system involves a home renovation. This means completing an inventory of red foods in the pantry, refrigerator, and the freezer in the home, and then donating at least half of these foods to friends, neighbors, or a food pantry. The reason that this is really important um, is because of uh, that perspective we talked about earlier. The circumstantial perspective considers the environment. It considers the environment as the likely culprit of this problem. It doesn't focus on a person. It focuses on the circumstances, the environment, the refrigerator, the pantry, um, the freezer. All of these are areas where red foods can be stored. And if they are out of sight, they may be out of mind. And if they're out of the house, they will be out of reach for sure. If a family wants to keep some red foods around, make sure you remember this hassle effect. The term hassle effect simply means if you don't want to use something frequently, make it a hassle for on yourself to have to go get it. So if you have a refrigerator in your basement and you keep a lot of Mountain Dews down there, and that's where you watch a lot of TV, only put bottled waters in that um, refrigerator downstairs, and maybe put the Mountain Dews in the shed and lock the shed and put the Mountain Dews behind boxes. And now, if a person really, really wants a Mountain Dew, they have to think, do I really want to go all the way to the shed behind these boxes to get a Mountain Dew? I'll pass. I'll just drink a water. That's the hassle effect in a somewhat extreme example. Remove 90% of red foods if self-control is extremely low. And post reminders about common foods that qualify as red so that kids are being educated on a regular, continuous basis. And it's important to make the red foods list visible as well as the green and yellow food list. And there are nice charts that can be purchased online for the traffic light reminders. Shop smarter is really important. Making a grocery list is necessary because anything new will be a bit more effortful in order to execute. So if you make a shopping list using the traffic light system visuals to inform those lists, that'd be fantastic. And then eat a healthy meal or snack and hydrate fully before grocery shopping. Um, People may be able to relate, but if you go to the grocery store on an empty stomach, you may make decisions that are less than ideal because of your condition. And people may walk away with a lot of junk food, and so that's a strategy to purchase wisely. Um, and then research inexpensive green foods so you don't get deterred if you are going down an aisle and everything looks really, really expensive in the healthy food section. You have your list, and on that list, you should have things like broccoli and bagged spinach, relatively inexpensive, healthy options. Potatoes, russet sweet potatoes, green cabbage, butternut squash, brown rice, oatmeal, bananas, frozen berries, eggs, chicken breast. This list is, I think, pretty legit. Uh, I would agree that these are the relatively inexpensive green foods that can compete with their unhealthy counterparts. So we don't have to make this cost prohibitive if we shop wisely, do the research necessary to purchase inexpensive green foods. Positive reinforcement is going to be necessary for any behavior change process. So parents need to positively reinforce their child often. Acknowledge and praise effort. Acknowledge and praise as execution. Acknowledge and praise anything that resembles the preferred behavior. Sometimes that's called shaping. Sometimes it's called rewarding successive approximation. And an example was here, a child went into the freezer, ate some red food. It was chocolate ice cream. The parent noticed though that the kid only ate one scoop of chocolate ice cream when the norm is two or three. So instead of being negative, the parent notices the good stuff and simply says, you know, I'm seeing you are practicing some portion control. I know you wanted to wait to have ice cream until the weekend, but you're eating it now. Um, so you're eating it early, but I do like that I'm seeing portion control. Way to go. And boom, the kid can feel reinforced and more motivated to continue in the journey. Another way to think about positive reinforcement is the honesty. If the food log includes honest descriptions of what was consumed, even if there are a lot of red foods, we really want to praise the honesty, so we can then go to problem solving. Step 7, this is the last step. We want to reiterate teamwork, empathy, and problem solving throughout the process. Ensure that all family members remain involved. Even if you have healthy weight children and just one overweight child, those healthy weight children can certainly benefit from this, like I stated, and they should be involved just as much. Grace and patience are key, especially in the beginning, because anything new will be difficult. It's just the way it is as human beings. There is a line of thinking that suggests it takes 6 weeks before a behavior becomes a habit. So 6 weeks of consistency with this program may mean you are owning it and it's no longer a strategy, it's a lifestyle. And that's what we ultimately want. Identify barriers to meeting weekly goals and brainstorm solutions together. If this is a team approach, then if one person struggles, the whole team struggles, and it's up to the whole team to problem solve and turn things around. And always remember that small gains are gains. That is the time I have for today. Thank you very much for your attention. There will likely be a follow-up to this that includes exercise, the exercise component of the traffic light system. It's important for me to state that this should not take the place of a professional, individualized treatment experience. There are individuals who need to seek professional help. If there are any pre-existing conditions, and you're making major changes to diet or exercise, please consult your primary care physician before you do anything drastic. If poor eating habits could be the result of high stress, setting up therapy with a licensed psychologist may be a good first step to really tackle that stress and give the person coping strategies. If poor eating habits are associated with a traumatic event, again, there are people with post-traumatic stress disorder who need interventions for that, and it would be more appropriate to start the program with that already in place, or at least at the same time, to make the journey with the traffic light system easier. And if you are unsure of how to overcome barriers to change, I mentioned contacting your primary care physician, but also the good folks at Boys Town's Behavioral Health Center. And the phone number is there, 202-650-6361. And you can also visit us on the web at www.boystown.org. Thanks for your time, and I hope to see you later. Bye.